mynews.studio.
2,000 rhinos set for freedom. Could this be the turning point for Africa's wildlife?
Today is 2025-10-12. So, 2,000 southern white rhinos are being released into protected areas across Africa. That's about 12 to 15% of the continent's remaining rhino population. The aim isn't only to save the species, but also to restore its place in the ecosystem. Why now, and why such a large number?
The timing matters. After decades of poaching and habitat loss, rhino numbers are finally going up. For the first time since 2012, we're seeing actual population growth. African Parks took over the Platinum Rhino breeding facility, which had more rhinos than any other place, and chose to move them out, to rewild them rather than keep them in captivity.
That brings up security. How do they protect these rhinos from poachers, since that's what caused the decline in the first place?
They're using several layers of protection. Picture ranger teams trained for anti-poaching and technology, GPS tracking, drones, camera traps, real-time monitoring. For example, in Rwilding National Park, there haven't been any rhino or elephant poaching cases for years. It also involves working closely with local communities and law enforcement to build trust and gather information.
So it's more than just fences and guards. Community involvement matters too?
Yes, that's central. If local people see benefits from rhino conservation, like jobs or tourism income, they're more likely to become partners. Gathering information is part of it too. Communities often hear if poaching is being planned.
And rhinos are called ecosystem engineers. What does that actually look like in practice?
On the ground, it means their grazing shapes grasslands. That keeps habitats open, lets a wider variety of plants grow, and supports everything from insects to larger animals. Their dung recycles nutrients. So rhinos help not just themselves, but a whole network of life. That can also make areas more attractive for tourism.
But are there risks to releasing so many at once? Could it throw off local ecosystems?
That's a valid concern. Overgrazing or competition with other herbivores could be an issue if it isn't managed well. African Parks handles this by doing habitat checks and introducing rhinos in stages. They monitor health, adaptation, and ecosystem effects closely, especially in the first few months after release.
Let's look at the breeding facility. How did they manage to raise so many rhinos, and why was African Parks taking over so significant?
The Platinum Rhino facility proved that captive breeding can preserve genetic diversity and keep the species from immediate extinction. But it wasn't financially sustainable, and there were welfare concerns, many animals, high costs, and a risk that splitting the population would harm genetics. African Parks stepped in, worked on health issues, and shifted the focus from captivity to the wild.
How do they prepare rhinos for life outside captivity?
It's a gradual process. First, thorough health checks and veterinary care. Then, letting the rhinos get used to more natural groups and environments. Genetic planning is done to make sure populations stay diverse. After release, they're tracked closely to catch any issues early.
But this isn't only about rhinos. Why does it matter more broadly for conservation?
It's a model that could be used for other species. It shows coordinated, science-based action can reverse declines. It also brings up questions. What's our role in protecting these animals? How do we tackle wildlife crime? Can we rebuild biodiversity despite climate and habitat pressures?
It's rare to see conservation at this scale. Will this become a template, or is it just a unique case?
That's the core question. African Parks' approach could guide more projects, but it depends on political will, funding, and commitment over time. The plan is there. Now it's a matter of whether others will use it.
2,000 rhinos, a continent-wide project, and maybe a pathway for future efforts. Will it succeed? And what happens next?
That's what we'll be following. Thanks for joining us as we covered one of the largest wildlife rewilding projects ever attempted.
From security to ecosystems, captive breeding to community involvement, we've walked through the whole story. Thanks for listening. This episode was brought to you by mynews.studio. Try it now for free.